Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I think personally this is my favorite James Cameron movie, and I think a lot of other people's as well. The action, the visual effects, the storyline, the drama, it's just a very groundbreaking movie. Speaking of groundbreaking, at the time, this was the most expensive film ever made. $100 million budget, which had never been done at the time, which you can kind of see because you can tell that James Cameron put everything on the screen. The fact that it was supposed to come out, I think it said originally supposed to come out Memorial Day weekend, but they had to push it to July, and the prints weren't ready until the night before the premiere and everything, just to finish all the post-production, the visual effects and all that. But speaking of visual effects, with the innovations of the T-1000 with the liquid metal body, he kind of took the innovations that he had from the Abyss and kind of maximized that by 100 with the T-1000, because I think originally he said that he was wanting to put the T-1000 in the original Terminator movie, but obviously they didn't have the visual effects for that, so he decided to kind of put that on the shelf and just have the T-800, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, for that one. As time went on with visual effects and they started to get more innovative with it, he kind of took that off the shelf, the idea off the shelf, and then kind of ran with it with the T-1000. And he's definitely not just a little cameo, he's in the movie. And there's so many just really cool shots of him in the mental ward, kind of going through the bars, or him kind of raising up from the checkered floor, coming out, obviously when he changes his hand to a knife and everything, stabbing through the elevators and all that. There's just a lot of really cool scenes where he's wait, is that CGI or is that real? Especially when it comes to the makeup and the practical effects, where there's some scenes where his head gets blown through and he has this giant hole in his head, and it's wait, is that CGI or is that practical? So I think they really did a really good job. Stan Winston, shout out to him for all the innovations he had at his studios when it came to the animatronics, and they kind of mix that up with the kind of ILM visual effects by Dennis Muren. The fact that you don't really know what you're seeing at times, and then you're just kind of really just engrossed in the story with it. So yeah, I can definitely appreciate it for that. Speaking of action, that I said previously, this is definitely his most action-packed movie. I feel it probably rivals maybe True Lies, but this one there's just action scene after action scene, between the fight scene between the T-1000 and the T-800. Multiple times they fight, when they first fight in the mall, and then the car chase where John Connor's on the Terminator's motorcycle and they're running away from the truck that's driven by the T-1000, and then later on where Sarah, John, and the Terminator are in the kind of armored vehicle, and they're driving away from the T-1000 who's in the helicopter flying after them, and then the big confrontation at the very end in the steel mill between the T-800 and the T-1000, everything where the Terminator's arm gets crushed in that structure, and then at the very end where Sarah Connor's blasting until he's about to fall over, and then the Terminator comes up, shoots that little grenade, and then he falls into the molted material, and then burns up. So yeah, it's just a relentless action movie, whereas the first Terminator was more a suspense movie. There's plenty of action in that one, but it's really more just a suspense movie, where this one is just an all action movie. There's suspense obviously in it as well, but it really kind of leans more towards how it was with Aliens, where with Alien it was more a horror movie, and then Aliens was action, where Terminator is suspense, and then Terminator 2 is definitely more of an action movie. I know sometimes it gets criticized by it kind of leans more into the action than the characters, but I honestly think the character work on this one is very, very good, especially with Terminator and John Connor, that whole relationship, where it's really just a father-son relationship. John Connor didn't have a father because Kyle Reese was killed in the first movie before he was even born. So John grew up without a father. He was very, the rebellious teenage kid, stealing money from the ATM machine, and, going to the arcade with his redheaded friend and all that. So he never really had a father. And then, obviously Sarah Connor went crazy after the events of the first Terminator movie. She was put into the psych ward, so he didn't really have parents. He had his foster parents, but he didn't really have a relationship with them. So then as this movie starts, and the Terminator is revealed to be a protector rather than being someone who's trying to terminate John. He's trying to protect him from the other Terminator, T-1000. They kind of form that relationship, and then once they free Sarah from the psych ward, she becomes more of a mother to him again. So they kind of become this kind of unconventional family. He's teaching them all the phrases hasta la vista, baby, and that comes in later on, where where Terminator shoots the T-1000 after he's like frozen in the liquid nitrogen, which is another iconic line. Yeah, I think the relationship drama kind of really works in this movie. And then obviously the very end with the sacrifice, where since the Terminator obviously is a cyborg, that could lead into more of like Skynet rising up. That their whole mission of trying to get the arm from Cyberdyne, destroy that, but and obviously destroy the T-1000, but they still need to destroy the T-800 so that there won't be no indication of Skynet rising up. So the fact that D-800 sacrificed himself, and John Connor kind of has to lose another father figure, was really emotional. The fact that he's like, I now know why you cry, but something I can't do. It was like very kind of hit me in the feels for sure. Kind of lowers himself into the molted material, burns up and gives him the thumbs up, and then John and Sarah kind of free to live their lives again. I thought was really emotional. So the fact that I'm gonna be a father pretty soon, in a couple months, and I'm gonna have a son. That really hit me in the feels. Another thing I really appreciate is just like the themes of protecting the value of human life, and having peace over violence. I know that's another thing it gets criticized for, is like it's supposed to be like the most violent movie that kind of talks about anti-violence. The fact that John doesn't want the Terminator to kill anybody in order to protect him. That the Terminator just like shoots people in the knee, or just like breaks their arms or something. So I guess that message kind of gets skewed a little bit. But the fact, the Terminator doesn't kill anybody. And I know like Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of had a problem with that at first. He was like, well, I don't kill anybody in this one. And James is like, no, you're the good guy in this one. You can't kill anybody. I know that kind of took a while for Arnold to kind of get over at first, because he's like the action guy. All the movies he's been in through like the 80s and 90s. He's always like killing the bad guys and stuff. But with this one, he really had to be a protector. And like honestly, I think a lot of people agree too, that this is like Arnold Schwarzenegger's best role in Terminator 2 specifically, where he's not really good at playing normal people, but when it comes to playing a cyborg, he's perfect. So I thought the fact that the Terminator is very robotic in the beginning, and then as time goes on, he becomes more and more human. And the whole theme with Sarah Connor, where she really pretty much starts off kind of like as a Terminator. Or like in the first one, she's very human and relatable. But then in the second one, she kind of becomes a Terminator herself, with the whole mission to, assassinate Miles Dyson, who's the creator of Cyberdyne, which kind of, as time goes on, becomes Skynet, and then, causes the rise of machines, where she's on that mission to, kill him. And then, she obviously can't bring herself to do it after seeing, Miles with his family and his little boy coming into his office and, wanting to play with him and stuff. I thought that was very emotional as well. So I thought that was a really good theme of like, gaining humanity, losing humanity, and then, regaining humanity, where Sarah and the Terminator kind of swap places in a way, where Sarah's very much the victim in the first one, and then she's kind of like in a way kind of like the predator, so to speak. But then through the power of love with Terminator and John, she kind of regains her humanity, kind of refocuses on the mission to, save humanity from the rise of machines, and then kind of go into the third act from there. But I thought that was a really good theme for this movie. I kind of talked to him that before, but I think like the supporting cast is really good. Like Robert Patrick as a T-1000, and Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, and then Edward Furlong as John Connor, and then the actor who plays Miles Dyson is also really good as well. Like I said before, kind of become this kind of unconventional family when it comes to like the third act to save humanity from the rise of machines. And then you have this amazing antagonist with the T-1000, who's just like relentless. I know like Robert Patrick did a lot of research on like how to become this kind of predator. He studied like eagles, and just like how they're kind of like lean forward, kind of this focus, and that kind of like this kind of unrelenting quality to them. So I thought that was really good. But kind of like with Vin Diesel says in Fast and Furious, like, it's all about families. So, like I said before, have they become like this kind of unconventional family, and they have this kind of like these different kind of aspects to it. But that's just another theme that's very important to James Cameron. It's just the power of family, and what you would do to protect your family, and kind of like the lengths you would go to make sure that they're safe. But I'm glad that he kind of establishes that a little bit more in this movie, and then kind of becomes a theme later on in his filmography.